Welcome back to the studio. Last time we were here, I had just finished up block 4 of Zen Garden. We have that here. Needs to be a little bit of a press. Here we have the orange, which is going to be the inner border, and the green will be the outer border for this particular project. The Zen Garden is a kit, and the kit comes in a nice plastic case, carrying case. It has the full instruction sheet for how this goes together with the cutting instructions, and each month or each block is individually packaged with all of the fabric that's laser cut and pre-fused with steam and seam tube. Originally we put this out as a block of the month, but that has long since been over, and so now it's available as a kit. If a store wanted to do it as a block of the month, it's still available, and they could release it as a block of the month at their store. But we have finished doing it as a block of the month, so it's all completely available. Right now we have, I believe we're going to do, maybe we're doing block 4 today. It's been a while, but we have it, everything set up. I'm going to go ahead and pull the camera in, but I also have to get my light box out. I've got my iron set up, but I don't have it plugged in, and I'm going to move some of this extra stuff off of the table, and we're going to practice or see how this new black covering does on the table. I recovered the ironing board, or my presentation table. I had white on it before, but the white was getting dirty really quick. I think I only had it covered for about 2 weeks before it was showing dirt and stains, and that's not the table's fault, it's mine, because I'm not a very neat person. Also because, well, it wasn't just the plants, but my second love is plants and orchids. I have 3 major loves: quilting, baking, and gardening. Those are the major 3. And so I like to do those in any particular order. So I'm going to pull you closer, clean up the table a little bit, and get rid of what I don't need on here, and then we'll get busy getting this particular block going. I'm also going to pull some of the pieces out. One of the first things I always like to do is give my pattern piece a quick iron. This is a dry iron, and I just like to get any of the creases out of the paper. I don't want those creases to translate into the incorrect positioning of the applique pieces on the background. I don't have to worry about it being a dry iron because I never put water in my iron. That way the iron can't leak on my fabric or my paper. So I always just keep a spray bottle instead of having water in the iron. So now I'm going to bring in my light box, and I can go ahead and get that plugged in. I can put on the pattern piece and cover it with our background fabric. I think I'm going to iron that piece real quick. And now I'm just going to go ahead and pull out all of the pieces of my applique. As I said earlier, the pieces are all laser cut and pre-fused. The fabric pieces are already also pre-selected. So basically what you see is basically what you're going to get inside the kit. Every once in a blue moon we've had to substitute something, but that rarely happens. So I'm going to basically set these things out. I'm not going to do it on the black today because that may be a little bit harder to see, but I'm going to set the components in some kind of an order, so it makes it easier for me to see them. I'm going to put all these circles together, all the feathers together. And then we can basically get started. So I have my pieces here. Any of the dotted lines indicate that that is a piece that goes under another piece, and it really doesn't matter where we start as long as we start somewhere. And so I'm going to go ahead and start with this little curly Q, and basically we just have to bend, fold over the piece a little bit, and that paper backing will just come right off. I'm going to use my instruction sheet here to collect my paper backings, just to make them easier to collect at the end of the project. Sometimes they fall on the floor, and if they fall on the floor with the sticky side down, sometimes they are a little hard to sweep up because they still have a little bit of tackiness on them. The nice thing about the full color sheet is if you have a question about where one of the pieces go, it helps to see by looking at the color cover sheet, because sometimes there's several pieces of the same shape and size but different colors. This piece actually should have gone down second. This piece should have gone down below or first. So I can go ahead and just lift that up. That's the nice thing about the Stima Seam 2. It's tacky enough to hold into place while you're working, but it also is repositionable. These circles will be pretty easy to get those finished. You can see in real time that these blocks go very quickly, and it's really something that multiple ages could work on together. Since there are several blocks in this kit, you could do something with a group of friends and then use this as a gift to present to someone for a wedding shower or a welcome home, a housewarming gift. It's also something a lot of ages could work on. Even if they were too young, they could just use the shapes on the paper background and use it as a puzzle and see if they could figure out where the pieces go. I always like that. If a piece is particularly stuck, you could always score the paper backing with a sharp object like a seam ripper or a pin, and then you can fold that piece and it gives you something to tear with. But I really don't have problems with that in my climate. The paper backing usually comes off fairly easily. I'm kind of jumping around from piece to piece. For me, I kind of do these the way I would a puzzle. I do like when we used to do the corners and edges first, because those were the most obvious. That's kind of how I do these. I do the pieces that are the most obvious, and then it helps reduce the amount of pieces that are left, and it just makes it easier to find the pieces. It's really not that complicated. We're getting close. With a piece like this, a compound piece, you could do this piece off of the pattern. Take it off of the piece, and so you can see through it a little bit better. That way, when you take the paper backing off of the blue, you already have the other two pieces on it, and you don't have to worry about the position of where those go. Because sometimes when you get 2 or 3 layers together, it's a little bit harder to see where they go. So now we'll put this back, see if we can get it back into position pretty well. Then when we put this compound piece down, we know that the 2 pieces on top will be pretty close to where they should go. Not that anyone would know the difference once the pattern is gone. I do want the points to match here at the bottom, so I'm going to start there. And we only have 2 pieces left. Eyes are usually made out of this thicker ultra suede material. These are the ones that you have to watch out for because they're a little bit heavier and they're small. So that means there's a small piece of Stema Seam 2 on the back. And so you want to be careful with these. Make sure you kind of press them down when you put them in place, and make sure they're in the right place when you're getting ready to fuse them, and give the iron some time to get through the thickness so that they fuse properly. I'm going to hold that down for a second. So now that we have all the pieces in place, I can go ahead and remove the light box, switch that out for my Teflon pressing sheet, and we can go ahead and move on to the fusing portion of this block. Okay, we have the block all set. I've removed the light box and I've replaced it with my Teflon pressing sheet. It's both going to be underneath the block and on top. That kind of just traps in the steam. As I said earlier, I just use a water bottle instead of putting water in my iron. I've had several good irons over the course of my quilting history, but usually what happens is, regardless of how much I paid for it, I end up tripping over the iron cord, and the iron goes sailing off of the ironing board and crashes on the floor, and that usually results in breaking the seal in the iron, and the iron starts leaking. Even if that doesn't happen, usually the iron starts sputtering, it gets rust spots, it goes through a self-cleaning cycle, and it gets my fabric dirty from the iron, from the water. So I just don't put water in the iron, and so it just doesn't do any of those bad things. The water in a spray bottle does just the same thing as the steam from the iron. So I'm just going to spritz the top of the applique pieces. This will do the same thing as the steam in the iron. Steam absolutely is required for using Steam Seam 2, which is what our fusible product is. And that's why it's part of the name, Steam Seam 2. It is required. The most common problem that people have with fusing is that they don't fuse properly. And the most common indication of that is when they're top stitching or quilting, they're getting gumming on their needle. And that is an indication that during this part of the process, we didn't do it correctly. And that could be that we didn't do it long enough. We didn't do it with moisture, either in steam or whatever part of that. And we didn't do it hot enough, moisture, or long enough. So that's an indication for you to go back to this part and relax a little bit. What also I'm going to do when I'm finished doing this from the top down, I'm going to flip the block over and do it from that side down. So I'm basically going to do this twice because I really do want to make sure that I'm fusing this properly. While we're here, let's do it right. You have to remember that some of these pieces have a piece of fabric and fusible, another piece of fabric and fusible, another piece of fabric and fusible, and the background. So the heat has to transfer through all of that, plus the Teflon pressing sheet, to get all the way through those layers. How long would it take for all of that? I can't answer it because everybody has a different iron, a different heat setting, different ambient temperatures, and so that's just something you're going to have to play with a little bit. I always feel a little funny because I feel like I have to rush through things on the camera. I always feel like I have to be talking and doing something, but sometimes you just have to relax and let this process take its natural time. When I get done with this process, I am going to flip this over and I'm going to do it again from the back. And so I'm going to go ahead and do that while I go ahead and pause the camera for the time being, and I'll bring you back in when the block is finished. That finishes up this block, which is block 4 of Zen Garden. This is a laser cut and prefused block. It is a whole kit. It has 12 blocks in the entire kit. It was originally a block of the month, but now it is just a kit. And it is still available. I'm going to continue on until we have all of these done, and then we'll go ahead and get them put together and quilted. It's a really beautiful kit. I can't wait till we have this one finished as well. This will probably be one of the things that I hang up in the spring summer type of thing because it's really beautiful. So thanks for stopping in and spending some time with me today, and until next time, take care of yourself and take care of each other. Mm-hmm.